Welcome to Parent Academy. I'm Charlonda Buckman, Assistant Superintendent of Family and Community Engagement, and this is part of our commitment to make sure you as parents know what's happening within a district. Today's topic is going to focus on one of the important changes we made in the district, and that is around curriculum. And joining us today is April Imperio, our Deputy Executive Director of K-12 Literacy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, April, and we're going to talk about ELA. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about who is April Imperio. So tell me a little bit about how you got into K-12 education.
Wonderful. So first, my name is obviously April, and I've been serving for 20 years in traditional public education. I started my career in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is a very large urban school district right outside of Washington, D.C., where I served at a little school called District Heights Elementary School. Then I had the opportunity to move to Florida, where I spent many years. I taught everything K-8, and I was able to serve at a state level in supporting school improvement before I moved to be a director of literacy in Jacksonville, Florida, in Duval County Public Schools.
And now we have you here in Detroit,
Yes.
which is our French pronunciation for Detroit,
Yes.
based on our history. But what I also find interesting about you is that you don't just come to this work from the lens of an educator who was obviously matriculated up. You are also a parent.
Yes, yes. I have 3 children, and I have 4 grandchildren. So I have, yes, I have 3 daughters. They are 28, 26, and 18. My youngest daughter is currently going to community college as she figures out what she wants to do with herself. And my older 2 children have, as they worked through their K-12 education, they had some barriers to overcome as it related to literacy. They both were diagnosed with dyslexia, and both now have college degrees. One's a scientist. She has a degree in biomedical physics, and the other one is an accountant. She has a degree in accounting.
Wow, well, congratulations on that. And I always think it's important that we understand the leaders in this district behind the work and how some of those experiences, both personal and professional, are impacting how you teach and also how you're making decisions around curriculum and things like that. So this year, big change in the district. We changed our curriculum. Can you talk a little bit about the impetus of that?
Yes, this is my favorite thing to talk about.
I know it is.
So we actually started last year. We've been really going after a strategic plan to prepare for the new materials that arrived in our classrooms over this summer. And we started by really providing what we like to call best-in-class professional development for all of our K-8, ELA, and math educators. And that professional development was really to build knowledge around the standards and what the standards demand in our instruction in order to meet the rigor and the challenge that live within the standards for our students. And that was a crucial part because in order to really select high quality instructional materials for our classroom, we want to make sure that we have a good idea of what those materials should look like, what the text should be.
So we took the approach of educating the educators in terms of what the Common Core actually required and the rigor that's going to be required in order for our children to get there. So educators being educated, and then what was the next part of this process?
So the next part was to convene educators, so over 100 educators across the district. Principals, assistant principals, and teachers were convened in reading and math groups, and they reviewed all of the instructional materials that were submitted for us to look at. And they reviewed it using a tool that helped us dig in and look for the alignment to the standards that I mentioned earlier. And ultimately, those committees made a recommendation to the superintendent as to which instructional materials they felt were the best fit for our district.
And this is an important piece that I like to lift up, because this wasn't a decision that was made in a silo. This wasn't about taking something that worked somewhere else and just plotting it down here, but this was a process in which educators who are currently who have been long-time teachers within Detroit Public Schools Community District, and helping to make a decision on the direction that we should go in.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know we're going to go deeper on ELA, but it's so that parents understand what are these new curriculums. name them for us, and then we'll pivot back to talk a little bit more about ELA. We're going to do a whole segment on the math portion on a different video.
Wonderful. So the new curriculum that was selected is EL Education for ELA literacy or reading, and Eureka Math for mathematics.
Okay.
And these are for grades K-8.
So ELA literacy, let's kind of dive into that one a little bit. Based on the selection and what you know, what can parents expect in terms of alignment? What are the things that, since this is sort of like your sweet spot, April, what are the things you get excited about that you think parents can look forward to?
So I think the thing that I am most excited about is the number of authentic trade books and literature and books that are coming into our classrooms.
So when you say trade books, I'm going to work on language because I know
Yes.
parents, we don't talk in that
Yeah,
academic
absolutely.
language. But what is a trade book?
Yeah, it's like an actual book that you hold in your hand, like Because of Winn-Dixie or Bud Not Buddy, or traditional books that are written by authors and published for the world to have access to. In education, oftentimes we've had traditional textbooks, and a lot of the literature, a lot of the text that's inside that book has been written for the sole purpose of education, right? And so one of the things that the Common Core standards call for is students having access to authentic, rich, complex text that is appropriate for the grade level that the students are in.
Okay. So when you look at this curriculum, you feel like there are lots of examples of where that actually happens. Talk about what that looks like in the classroom space, and then we're going to spend some time talking about what parents can do to support the evolution of this new curriculum at home. So
So EL education in the classroom, if you were to walk into like a 4th grade classroom, which I had the privilege of doing this morning, and you see EL education happening, you're going to see students with a novel in their hand. In this case, it was Love That Dog.
So the traditional core plethora of reading that is available.
Yeah, so they would have a novel, and then they have almost an interactive journal. And they're using that journal to discuss, they're reading, they're discussing, and they're writing about what's happening in that text. So this morning, the students had read a novel that's called Love That Dog, or a section of that novel. And they were looking for specific things that were happening in the story, and then they were jotting down their noticings and their wonderings about the character, and from there, they were talking about it with their partner, and then that leads to a writing activity.
So are they paired up in the classroom in that activity? So you said reading, writing, and discussing.
Yes.
And when I listen to that, that almost feels like something you can do at home with your children while you're cooking dinner, right? You can have them reading text and then writing down their notes and discussing that over dinner. So I'm always looking for ways for how parents can apply what's happening here.
I think one of the biggest changes parents will see in homework this year is that the majority of the homework is reading. So it is bringing these rich books home and reading to prepare for the next day.
So the students can take books home this year?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't want to go past that because I know that has been an issue for many of our parents, is the inability to take books home or have adequate supplies of books. So we started this school year with all the books in place.
Yes, we started the school year with all books in place in all of our schools. They actually started arriving in July.
Yes, that is a win.
Yes, that is a big win. And taking the books home and bringing them back is a part of preparing kids for college and career readiness. It does take collaboration between the parent and the student and the school, because it is important that the book comes back to school.
So as
because
parents,
the work
we
the
should
next
be thinking
day.
about, okay, there's an opportunity for us to reinforce in the practice of reading, writing, and discussing over dinner. I keep plugging that in there so that we find time within our schedules, but also helping our young people to be responsible to make sure, do you have your book? Okay, if you're ready to walk out the door, do you have your book in your backpack? So again, looking for roles that as parents, we can play to reinforce that. And so even as we move into that, April, what are some other things that parents can be excited about, but also talk about how do parents reinforce? I've snatched out a few things. What's happening in schools?
Yeah, so I think some of the other things that parents can be excited about is that the new curriculum is, and I'll define this, it's called content-based literacy.
Okay.
And what that means is through reading, students are going to be studying topics.
Okay.
And all of those topics are very academically relevant,
Okay.
meaning in fifth grade right now, they're studying human rights. And they're reading a novel called Esperanza Rising, but they're also simultaneously studying and reading the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Oh, wow.
In kindergarten, they study trees. And then in second grade, they study plants. And then by the time they get to fifth grade, they're studying the biodiversity of a rainforest. And so all of that is very designed, is very purposeful, because for students to read at grade level, two things have to happen. They have to have the ability to decode a word. So like I have to be able to know that the word cat is made up of 3 letters. Those letters make a sound, and I can say, read the word cat. But in order to know what the word cat means, I have to bring knowledge to the table. So reading comprehension and reading at grade level is really about being able to have the skill of decoding words and creating a condition where I can take knowledge from what I'm reading. And the way you do that is building knowledge through what you're reading in your classroom. And so they're going to be studying all these topics. So when they hit 10th grade U.S. history, they're going to remember in 5th grade, I read about the women's suffrage movement. Or I read about Abraham Lincoln in 2nd grade. And that knowledge is going to help them have access to the new information they're learning later in life.
And I like what you're saying in the context of it being relative to what's happening in and around you, or the history of this country and the women's suffrage movement. I'm a Delta, sorry to bring that up, but I am. And so Shirley Chisholm was obviously a very active person in that movement. And so when you talk about some of the context that they're reading, they can relate it to everyday life. And that content, I think, is critically important as well.
And that was actually critical in the evaluation when our educators were evaluating the materials. One of the key things they were looking for in the text was something that's called windows and mirrors. So they were looking for text where children saw themselves and their own experiences represented in the text, and that would be the mirror. But they were also looking for text that gave our children exposure to other cultures and other part of the world, and other experiences that we may not have experienced in our daily life. And through that, you build a learning experience where you grow empathy for differences, but you also take pride in seeing your own reflection in what you're reading.
Okay, thank you so much, April, for sharing more context and more details around what our kids will be learning. And I could tell that you're so excited about this. That's why I love working with our academic team. At this moment, I want to invite some of our parents who have come today to ask questions relative to the curriculum, to something you heard or something that you're curious about as far as the change in curriculum in the district this year. So do we have any questions from the audience?
Hi again, thank you for having me here. My name is Stacy Johnson, and both of my children attend Ludington Middle School. They're in the 5th grade. My son is on the autism spectrum. He receives special education, and my daughter mentioned the novel that you just mentioned for her ELA class, and she's been asking some of those questions about human rights. And so what you're saying is definitely on point. So my son struggles with comprehension, and he does receive resources. How can my husband and I better help him to understand the text that he's reading?
That's a wonderful question. I was actually at Ludington Middle School this morning working with them with their new instructional materials, so it's exciting to see you. So the number one thing that we can do to help children with comprehension is to read with them. So it's commonly referred to as like volume of reading. Through volume of reading, you build knowledge, and through building knowledge, you improve comprehension. So reading with him, feeling comfortable reading aloud with him, feeling comfortable creating a condition for him to listen to reading. So audio tapes are available for, but then also engaging in questions around what he read. And they don't have to be these super sophisticated questions. They can be questions about details in the text or how your child is responding to what they're reading in the text.
All right, thank you very much.
Do we have other questions from the audience?
Hi, my name is Verna Brox, and I have an interest in the new curriculum, but it hasn't been rolled out to parents yet. So how do we have an opportunity to engage with the teacher or your department so that we can better help our children?
So I'm gonna jump in on that one as well. That's a great question, Verna, and it was not staged, but I will say this. So one way is we're gonna have conversations like this because we know every parent can't come to the school. But the other thing that we're doing is we're intentionally having curriculum nights, and so parents are able to come out to their local school and get more information from the teachers in terms of what's happening in their school, in their particular school community, but also to get an understanding of what's happening with the curriculum. And I know you probably want to add to that.
Yeah, I would just add to that, myself and Tony Hawk went on a speaking tour this summer through Parent Academy. So looking at the Parent Academy catalog, we presented at DPSCD Day, and we also went all over the city in different schools and different locations talking about trying to get the word out to parents about the new courses, and we're going to be repeating that again in the fall. So curriculum nights at your school, but then also looking at the fall Parent Academy catalog, because that would give you the chance to really interact with me and my team.
That's wonderful. I have one other question, and it is about the, I know frequently we're faced with our students or our school meeting AYP. And my challenge is how can we look at the school and not at each individual child. So how do we learn how to best help our children meet AYP when we have limited knowledge or information about what each child should learn or should be learning in each grade level?
I think one thing that we're really focused on this year is meeting the needs of all children, regardless of any federal or state mandates. We, as a district, believe in serving our teachers and our students and ensuring that they get what they need to have the opportunity to be reading at grade level. And so we're going about that in a couple of different ways. One way is to determine where is this child in the continuum of acquiring reading skills across grade levels. And we're accomplishing that through an assessment that's called the iReady Diagnostic Assessment. And we started that in K3 last year, and now it is in all of our K8 classrooms for reading and mathematics. So that is the first step in knowing, like, where is this student and what do they need? The next step is to think about what are the areas we want to focus on to help this student achieve grade level reading or above. And then we pair that child with strategic interventions. And those interventions are outlined in what is called our MTSS process, which is like a tier 2 and a tier 3 intervention. And it may be that they get a little extra help from the teacher in differentiated small group in the classroom. Or it may be that they have a friend that comes to the classroom and gives them a little extra instruction to help the filling gaps for students so that we are meeting the individual needs. And although that helps us meet any federal or state guideline, it's really more about serving children and making sure that our children have what they need to be successful and have the opportunity to read at grade level.
I look forward to supporting your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Good morning, Sean Malloy. I am also a father of a student in the district. My question is, with rolling out a new curriculum, is there a time frame in regards to the results of the assessments and how we'll see the improvements in our children from learning the new curriculum?
Yeah, that's always like that. Our belief is that we will see the results at the end of this year. Reform and rebuilding a district takes time, And so it's difficult to predict the dramatic increase, but we do expect, based on the training and the foundation that was laid last year, adding to that the use of the new instructional materials this year, that we will see an increase in the number of students in our district that are reading at grade level, and that year over year, that increase will continue as we grow in our knowledge of the materials, we grow in our capacity to use the materials, and we fill in gaps for students, and they're coming more prepared for the grade level materials that they have in their classroom.
Thank you.
April, we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes here. I want to just ask you, in terms of, with anything that you roll out, we did a lot of professional development over the summer with teachers. Teachers helped select this curriculum. They are now rolling it out. What type of support is in place to make sure that teachers are successful and feeling good about their ability to implement this with children before them?
Yeah, you named where it started, which was, it actually started all the way back with the standards-based professional learning. And then over the summer, our teachers received either 4 or 5 days of professional learning, depending on the grade band, and that was to introduce them to the materials. And now we're in this phase of teachers beginning to use the materials. And when they start using them, questions begin to arise. So our district has implemented a model that is named Master Teachers. Master teachers went through a rigorous interview and selection process, and they are spending 50% of their time actually using the materials, teaching students in the school, and 50% of their time working with and coaching teachers.
So we've built in a way for them to get reinforcement through having a layer of master teachers who are some of the best and the brightest the district has to offer. And they are not just directing, they're practicing their craft, but then they're also coaching others.
Yeah, and so this, actually next week, I'm holding office hours for all the master teachers in the district, and we're using that time to go over some of the initial questions that are bubbling up as teachers are beginning to use the program.
And every school has master teachers.
Every school has master teachers, and then monthly, master teachers are going to be convening for professional learning that they take back and turnkey to all teachers in the district. And then there's a long-term strategic plan with our partner in this work, EL Education, that created the curriculum. They're actually going to be, they trained over the summer, and they're going to be back with our teachers on our Professional Development Day on November 6th, helping to think about how things went in the first quarter,
So
and
we're
then
not going to wait
preparing for second quarter.
Right, we're not waiting to the end of the school year. We are checking in the first quarter to see, are we on track, are we off, what adjustments do we make, and teachers have a way to weigh into that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. EL K-12 education. Thank you for this conversation today, April. Before we go, I do know that we brought some other leaders in the academic department here with us, and I would like to ask them to come to the mic to introduce themselves, and we will probably organize these intimate conversations with each of them. But if you could come and introduce yourself and just talk about how your work, how the EL K-12 education is foundational or complementary to the subject matter that you're leading in the district.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Snap, and I currently serve as the K-8 Training and Support Coordinator for the Office of Literacy. I have been with Detroit Public Schools Community District for 23 years, serving in elementary, upper elementary from grades 3 through adult education. And I am excited about going into our school buildings and working with our master teachers and our teachers with the EL education curriculum.
Good afternoon. My name is Denisha Malone. I am a training and support coordinator in the Office of Literacy for grades 9 through 12. I bring 20 years of experience. I've worked for Detroit previously, Detroit Public Schools, that is, and Southfield Public Schools. I am also a Detroit Public Schools graduate. I just look forward to doing the great work that teaching students and working with parents and serving the community. I enjoy doing that work, and I'm looking forward to doing the great work.
Hi, my name is Stephen Benson. I'm the 9 through 12 Training and Support Coordinator in the Office of Literacy. This is my 8th year in public education. I recently lived out of state, but for the past 2 years, I've worked in DPSCD as a teacher. I worked at Henry Ford High School and last year I was at Mumford High School. And I'm most excited for supporting the K-8 curriculum, but also next year we're going to be doing a very similar process and implementing a 9-12 curriculum. But for this year, what's exciting in the high schools is that we have a brand new PSAT and SAT course that all 10th and 11th graders are taking. So I'm really excited for that and to support teachers around that.
Hello, ladies. My name is Ellen Gilchrist, and I lead social studies for the district. I'm so excited about our new curriculum in K-8 because it will really help prepare our students for the work we're beginning in social studies. When our students are thinking critically, when they're asking questions, and when they're able to have conversations with their peers, they're better prepared to be active and engaged citizens. We know so much of being engaged in our community is about being able to understand what's put in front of us and being able to ask the important questions and understand the answers that we're given. I know that this curriculum is going to prepare our students for what they need to do in high school and beyond that, and I'm very much looking forward to partnering with the Office of ELA, Literacy, and with parent academies to move our work forward in social studies and literacy.
Good afternoon, ladies. My name is Evelyn Mann, and I'm the program supervisor for the Office of Literacy. I've been with the district for about 40 years, and I'm so excited about the program that's being offered to our K-8 students, because when we go into schools, I work with volunteers, and when we go into schools, we're looking for books. We no longer have to look for books. So I'm so excited to see that the books are in the classroom. All we have to do is engage our students and engage our parents, and engage our students and engage our parents. And I want to thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. Parent Academy has been a big part of our program in terms of supporting us. I want to thank you for supporting us, and we look forward to your support in the future and for helping parents help our students to read. Thank you so much.
So I want to thank our whole academic team, and thank you parents for watching another episode of Parent Academy, reaching out to you where you are to make sure you know what's happening in the district. Thank you so much, April, and I would encourage parents to continue to read, write, discuss over dinner.